Once upon a time, speech was not pleasant except by mentioning the most gracious, and prayers and peace be upon our Master Muhammad, the best of mankind. In a distant land, sleeping in the embrace of dark forests and under the shade of cold mountains, there lived a wealthy merchant who thought that life had given him everything. A spacious palace overflowing with prosperity, sprawling lands and inexhaustible wealth. But the most precious thing the merchant owned was his 3 daughters, who were the light of his life in a world filled with shadows. Hasna, the eldest daughter, had red hair like burning embers and features that steal the eyes and take the breath away. Hind, the middle sister, had her mysterious beauty. Her black hair was like an endless night and green eyes that sparkled with life. As for Layla, the youngest daughter, she was beauty embodied in her white skin like mountain snow, and her soft blue eyes that reflected the vastness of the sky, and her golden hair that it shines with a dim light like a winter sun. But happiness is not permanent, just like a dream that turns into a kiss at dawn. After the death of his wife, the warmth of the house dissipated and hearts drowned in a sea of sadness that has no shore. The merchant was overwhelmed with a feeling of deadly loneliness, so he searched for a woman to bring life back to the house, a woman who would spread the tenderness that his daughters lacked. But, without knowing, he opened the gates of hell when he chose his new wife. She was enchantingly beautiful, a beauty that hid behind it a heart like stone. With her first step inside the palace, the features of kindness began to fade, to be replaced by a cruelty that he had never seen before. Her words were like whips that rained down on the 3 girls, and heavy orders like songs that shackled their souls. As the merchant's mysterious illness increased, the girls felt sadness wrapping around his necks, but they did not know that the worst was coming. On a night covered in frost, the stepmother met in a dark room with an evil witch. There, amidst toxic smoke and frightening spells were cast. A devastating curse, Hasna's right hand was suddenly paralyzed, while Hind's left hand was paralyzed, and Lila was struck with eternal silence as her ability to speak was taken away. In a voice carrying all the colors of hatred, the stepmother screamed, "I don't want you here anymore. We left this palace. Live in the forest as befits those like you." The girls went out on a pitch-black night, tears filling their faces. The dark forest was in front of them, a place that does not have mercy on anyone. Hasna turned, wiping her tears with her remaining hand, and said in a hoarse voice, "We have to stand firm." As for Layla, she looked at them with eyes drowned in sadness, unable to express herself. But inside, she decided to be the silent force that would push him to continue. And so began their path in the desolate forest, where there was nothing but darkness and fear. Layla, despite her silent suffering, began to take the initiative. She gathered fruits and found a simple shelter that would protect her from the danger of the nocturnal monsters. The nights were long and cold, surrounded by fear, but Lila continued to show her strength. She woke up early every morning, gathering food and bringing water from the river, encouraging her sisters with her smile that hid behind it mountains of pain. The days passed slowly and heavily, and time was conspiring against them, but hope remained a small glimmer in their hearts. Every night they raised their hands to the sky, begging their Creator to save them from this torment. With every tear that fell, their spirit grew stronger, and their determination became more rooted in the face of the darkness that surrounded them on a cloudy day. While the girls were collecting firewood and wood in the dense forest, they heard a weak barking and squeezing sound. We stopped walking and exchanged anxious glances before they decided to head towards the sound. We approached cautiously to find a scene that touched our hearts. 3 small, skinny, neglected wolf puppies gathered in the trunk of an old tree, shivering from the cold and hunger, looking at them with eyes filled with distress and hope. The girls felt something breaking inside them in front of this scene. We forgot their suffering and immediately decided to save these small creatures. They carried the puppies gently, overcoming their fear of the idea of wolves and taking him to his simple shelter. They named the puppies with names inspired by their circumstances and dreams. Fajr, whom Hasna named after the morning that carries hope. Ra'ad, whom Hind named after his strength and majestic voice. And Lail, whom Layla named after his beautiful black color and eyes that shone like the light of the stars. With the passing of days, the puppies became an integral part of the girls' lives. With their rapid growth, they transformed. There was a special language between them that did not need words. He understood her signals and smiles and translated them into actions. One day, while the girls were gathering fruits, a group of rough men came out from among the trees. They were bandits carrying weapons and filled with anger and violence. They surrounded the girls. The men froze in place from the intensity of the terror, but what the men did not realize was that the wolves were nearby, watching silently. The moment one of the men tried to pounce on the girls, the three wolves took off like a storm. Their attacks were fierce and fast. Their voices terrified even the forest itself. They tore the attackers apart without mercy. They sank their white fangs into their rotten bodies and threw them far away from the girls' eyes until their screams completely died down. After that day, the girls realized that the forest was no longer safe. They began to seriously consider leaving this terrifying place. While they were resting under the shade of a large tree to see a caravan traveling on the distant road, the caravan included soldiers, men, women, and children, and was heading towards the town. The girls felt a bit of hope, and fate was opening a new door to life for them. But the moment we were close to making the decision to leave, the wolves began to howl in a strange, deep voice, as if expressing their sadness and desire to stay with them. Their eyes carried a mixture of pain and farewell. The girls couldn't bear the thought of leaving these loyal creatures behind. Layla sat next to Lyle, patting his head gently as tears streamed from her silent eyes. In the end, the girls decided to stay. The wolves were more than just animals. They were protectors, friends, and perhaps the only family they had left in this cruel world. And so their lives continued in the forest, united with the wolves, facing hardships together with one spirit and unquenchable hope. The days passed slowly as the girls got used to life in the forest among the wolves who had become their family and protectors. But one cold night, while they were sitting around a small fire, its tongues dancing in the dark, the girls felt something strange looming in the air. The three wolves, Fajr, Ra'ad, and Lail, began to make unfamiliar sounds. A howl that echoed in the forest, sending terror and confusion into the souls of Alyat. Hasna noticed the wolf's anion. It was shining with a strange light, as if it reflected buried secrets. Before she could think of asking, Fajr broke the silence with a human voice. For the first time, he said clearly, "We are not just wolves, we are enchanted princes." The girls froze in place, their eyes wide in astonishment. How could the wolves who lived with them and shared their pain actually be princes ruled by a mysterious magic? Ra'ad completed in a sad voice that carried the bitterness of the past. We were princes in a great kingdom ruled by our father, the just king, but a traitorous minister conspired against us. He killed our father and cast a black spell on us that turned us into wolves. The words fell like rain on the girls' ears. The rulers were pieces of an ancient legend. Lael added in a low voice that carried hope, mixed with despair. We thought this would be our eternal fate, but when we met you, we felt something different. We saw in you courage and hope that could help break the spell. Heavy moments passed before Hind broke her silence, asking hesitantly, "But how can we help you? We are just girls who know nothing about magic or fighting it." Fajr answered in a firm tone, "Deep in the forest, there is a magical tree that is said to have the power to break. The spells we heard about from birds and animals, but they are surrounded by scars. If we can reach them, we might escape this fate. The girls now face a reality that seems to have come out of the pages of a mythical book. Everything seemed imaginary. Their previous lives were like a distant dream." But after an initial shock, Hasna gathered her courage and said firmly, "We will help. We will not back down, no matter the cost. We will find that tree and break the spell." The decision was final. Fears faded in the face of the desire to confront this challenge. The girls and the wolves set off on their journey with the first rays of dawn. The sun was rising slowly, coloring the sky with shades of orange and yellow, as if encouraging them in their journey into the heart of the unknown. After half a day's walk, the forest began to reveal its true face, a dense forest that hides dark secrets within its folds. The trees became taller and more tangled, their dense leaves stifling the fading sunlight, leaving dancing shadows that the eyes awaited. The winds whispered between the branches as if they were conveying mysterious messages that only those who lived a lifetime in this forest could understand. It was the girls walked side by side, their steps cautious on the ground covered with dry leaves. The sound of cracking under their feet was mixed with the whispers of the wind while the wolves walked beside them, their bright eyes scanning the path for any sign of the magic tree. A feeling of tension and danger was looming over every step, and the forest was warning them not to advance. Their journey continued for days and days, full of exhaustion and doubts, until they reached a new barrier, a wide, merciless river. Its waters were flowing at a tremendous speed, emitting a roar like the roar of a giant beast. The girls stood on the bank, looking in amazement at the flowing waters like whips, cutting the road in front of them without mercy. Hasna said in a hesitant voice and eyes full of caution, "What is caution? How can we cross this? This river seems to be trying to swallow everyone who approaches it." Rad answered in a calm tone, but his eyes were watching the river intently. "We must find a way. Perhaps there is a bridge nearby or something we can use to cross." While their eyes were examining the place, Layla pointed to a looming wooden structure. In the distance, Hind said enthusiastically, trying to ease the tension, "It's our only bridge. We must use it." They walked towards the bridge carefully. The bridge was old, made of corroded wood and worn nails, as if it carried a long story of neglect and isolation. Hind said enthusiastically, trying to ease the tension, "It's our only bridge. We must use it." The group walked cautiously towards the bridge. The sounds of their feet were making a disturbing creak under their weight, and the wind began to blow strongly, as if it were testing their patience and steadfastness. When they reached the middle of the bridge, the wind began to blow madly, trying to push them towards the angry waters. The girls held on to the old ropes that were securing the bridge, while the wood shook under their feet, as if it was about to collapse. Hasna shouted, "Don't let go of the ropes, we are close." With hearts full of fear and unwavering determination, they continued to walk until they finally reached the other bank. Their breaths were ragged, and their eyes were shining with a mixture of terror and triumph. Rad said in a steady voice, as he glanced at the raging river from afar, "We have passed this barrier. But the forest wouldn't make it any easier. They continued their journey deeper into the forest, knowing that every step that brought them closer to their goal carried greater risks. As they cautiously made their way through the dark forest, strange sounds echoed in the distance. Unknown birds were hiding among the dense branches, singing incomprehensible tunes as if they were whispering in an ancient, forgotten language. Their words were unlike anything they had ever heard before. They seemed like fragments of stories of adventurers lost in the depths of the forest. The girl's hearts trembled as those tunes crept into his ears. We felt fear seeping into his depths, as if the songs were trying to wrest his will and push him to flee. Lil cried out in a decisive voice, his eyes watching the hidden birds. He immediately closed his ears. These are ordinary birds. Their sounds plant fear and failure in the hearts of those who hear them. Aliot complied, and he slowly closed his ears with their trembling hands. The feeling of terror began to fade, as if the birds had lost their strength, but nature wasn't done testing them yet. Suddenly the winds picked up, and the sky turned into a stormy grey painting. Heavy rain poured down relentlessly, flooding the ground and drowning their steps. Everyone ran towards a small cave that appeared as a refuge in the midst of the chaos. Inside, they watched nature display its strength outside. Rad said in a low voice but full of certainty, "We are very close to the magic tree. These barriers and storms are not a coincidence. They are part of its protection for itself." After the storm subsided, they continued walking little by little. The dense trees began to recede as if they were making way for revealing a secret hidden for ages. They saw the sky appear clearly for the first time in days and felt that they were on the verge of a great discovery. Suddenly, a huge tree appeared before them, standing tall in the heart of the forest, as if it were a queen ruling her kingdom with unparalleled dignity. Its leaves, shimmering in golden color, were emitting a magical light, and its branches extended towards the sky as if they were trying to touch the stars. The atmosphere surrounding the tree was saturated with peace and awe at the same time, as if the whole nature had stopped. This meeting had happened. Hasna said in an amazed voice, staring at the tree, "It's the magic tree. We've finally arrived." The girls and the wolves approached her slowly, their hearts filled with reverence. With every step, the tree's branches began to move gently, as if welcoming them. It seemed like a promising living being watching them carefully and preparing to reveal its secrets. The tree said in a voice full of tenderness and dignity, "I know your story, and I understand very well why you came here. I will help you break the curse that weighs you down, but the road will not be as easy as you imagine." The tree's branches shook gently, pointing to the unknown, as if drawing a hidden path. She continued, "Each one of you has a special mission. You must find the 3 fruits that your evil stepmother hid in the depths of this forest. Finding them will not be a mission that can be shared, but each one must face her challenge alone." The branches turned toward Hasna first, as if they were wrapping themselves around her. "Gently turn it around, beautiful. Your fruit is a ripe red apple that resembles your shining red hair. You will find it in an old, dark cave, guarded by deceitful creatures. These creatures hate the light, but do not underestimate them. You must overcome your fears of the dark and be brave." Then she moved towards Hind as if she sensed her strong spirit. "Hind, your fruit is a fig the color of your shiny black hair. The fig is hidden with the apple in the same cave, but make no mistake, the path is fraught with danger. You will need freedom and intelligence to cross the winding paths and reach it." Finally, the tree addressed its words to Layla, while its golden tips radiated a dim light. As for you, Layla, its fruit is the color of your golden yellow hair, a pear hidden inside a giant tree in the heart of a flooded swamp. The path to you is full of mud and dense fog that can mislead even the most steadfast hearts. You must trust yourself and advance with steady steps. The atmosphere was filled with awe and respect, as if the tree had entrusted them with the secrets of the forest. Before the tree closed its branches and its twigs shrank, she said in a fearful voice, "These missions are not just a means to find fruits. They are tests of your courage and willpower. Just remember that with unity and courage you will be able to succeed." With hearts beating with enthusiasm and fear together, everyone left the shadow of the magic tree, heading to the unknown. The cave was their first destination, where the apples and figs awaited them. The area where the cave was located was like a piece of another world, dark and brutally silent. The tangled trees prevented the sun from penetrating, so the forest seemed to be drowning in eternal night. The atmosphere was cold, and the wind was blowing lightly. Mysterious sounds were emitted, like the whispers of spirits watching from afar. Hasna stopped in front of the cave entrance, looking at the darkness that seemed to extend to the end. She said in a steady voice, despite the beating of her heart, "We have to enter, Hind. We will not return without the apples and figs. This magic will not go away, except with his courage." They cautiously advanced inside. The air was heavy, filled with the smell of mold and dampness. The walls were covered with ancient engravings engraved in random lines. It tells of shadow creatures that were said to inhabit the cave since long ago. The shadows around them were moving strangely, as if they were lurking for them, trying to undermine their steps and extinguish their courage. The deeper they went, the more dense the darkness became, and the cold became more penetrating. Suddenly, from the heart of the shadows, strange creatures appeared. Their shapes were blurry, moving without clear features, as if they were Arwa, stuck between life and death. Her voice was like a whisper, with trembling steps. Then she whispered, in a voice filled with terror, "Hasna, these are the shadow creatures that the tree told us about. We must use the light to expel them." Hasna quickly responded, and together lit the torches that they had been preparing since the beginning. The flames rose in the darkness, as if it were a glimmer of hope in the midst of an endless nightmare. The creatures retreated with an angry voice, writhing as if they were burning from the glow of the light. The two girls made their way through the winding corridors until they reached a wide shelf filled with dim light, as if it was springing from nothing. In the middle of the room was an old stone box covered in a layer of dust. It is almost like stories of centuries gone by. Hasna walked slowly, her eyes fixed on the box. "This is it. Here is the answer," she whispered. They carefully opened the box, and suddenly a small tree trunk shot out, growing at an astonishing rate, as if alive. The tree reached up, with branches spreading in every direction. From one branch, a ripe red apple, the color of Hasna's shining hair, appeared. From another, a black fig, mirroring Hind's shiny hair, appeared. The two girls stood in amazement for a moment, but Hasna quickly picked the apple while Hind reached for the fig. They exchanged a small smile, realizing this was just the beginning of the challenges, but the first victory was within reach. Hasna took the apple carefully and said, "Finally, we will be able to break this magic." She placed it between her lips and took a small bite. Immediately, she felt warmth spreading through her right hand, and slowly it began to move again. Hind, having picked the fig, experienced the same sensation. Her hand moved as well. The two girls, now able to move, left the forest filled with happiness. Victory in the midst of this forest full of secrets. Hind exclaimed as she hugged her sister tightly. "We succeeded, but the journey isn't over yet. We must now find Layla's fruit and break the magic." With confident steps, they moved towards the swamp, where a giant tree stood like a silent guardian amidst the thick fog. The ground was damp and soft beneath their feet, as if warning them of hidden dangers. The swamp looked eerie, its stillness frightening. In the center of it all stood the tree, tall with branches that intertwined with the clouds as if trying to embrace the sky. As they approached, the fog grew denser, surrounding them like a cold breath. Layla, realizing that she would face this challenge alone, stood still. She recalled her father's words that had always stayed with her. Life is like water. It resists if you resist it, but softens if you meet it calmly. Taking a deep breath, she moved slowly, her feet dragging through the sticky mud that threatened to swallow her. Each step was difficult, but it made her more determined. Her companions watched anxiously as she moved forward. When Layla reached the giant tree, she extended her trembling hand towards the trunk. As soon as she touched it, the tree began to shake, its interior splitting open as if welcoming her. A golden yellow thara fruit emerged from its heart, glowing faintly in the darkness. Layla hesitated for a moment, then grabbed the fruit and took a small bite. Immediately, warmth spread through her body, and her long-lost voice returned. She called their names. "Hasna!" "Hind!" Her two sisters rushed to her, and the three embraced in a joyous reunion. But their happiness was short-lived, as they knew the journey wasn't over yet. Layla turned to them and said, "We must return to the magic tree. It's time to find out how we will move forward." They returned to the tree, which spoke in a deep, calm voice. "My brave daughters, your journey is still not complete. To save the princes, you must go to the foot of the mountain outside this forest. There you will find the Well of Wishes. But be warned, it is greedy. It does not give anything without a price, and you must be careful in what you ask." After days of traveling through valleys and desolate forests, the great mountain appeared before them, towering like a giant carrying the sky. A strange cold air filled the atmosphere, and the mountain seemed to breathe. Hasna, filled with anxiety, said, "We've arrived, but something feels wrong. We must be cautious." They reached the foot of the mountain, where the Well of Wishes stood amidst thick fog and moss-covered rocks. The atmosphere was dim, and silence hung heavily in the air, as if the place was waiting. Layla walked forward, her steps steady and calm. The well suddenly spoke, its voice cold and distant. "I want the most beautiful girl among you to give herself to me. She will live in my belly forever and comfort my solitude." Silence fell. Terror was written on their faces. The wolves, brave as they were, couldn't bear to accept this offer, but the delicate one made the decision. Layla stepped forward, gazing into the well's depths. "Make my friends happy so they can return to their normal state and restore my sister's palace and save my father. I will be your companion in solitude." Before anyone could protest, Layla jumped into the well. Her sisters screamed, but there was nothing to stop her. A moment of deadly silence passed, and then the well exploded with clear flowing water, as if it were a spring of life. Then voices emerged from the depths of the well saying, "Let each one of you drink, O princes." The wolves approached cautiously and drank from the water. As soon as they did, their bodies began to transform. Their fangs and paws turned into human arms and fingers. In mere moments, 3 handsome men stood before everyone, their bodies whole and their eyes shining with gratitude and life. Everyone turned toward the well, which spoke again, this time with a clear warning. You still have much to do to regain the kingdom and the palace. You must confront the evil witch and the usurping magician. In the witch's room, you will find a water skin containing fire. Pour it on the fires that never go out in the magician's palace. But there is a condition. Before you use the water, you must bring 3 drops of nectar from a scarlet flower that grows on a distant island in the middle of the raging seas. But beware, the flower has a unique scent. If it seeps into a person's nose, it will plunge them into a deep sleep that lasts for 100 years. Wait for a calm day with no wind, so you do not fall into the trap. The well fell silent once again. Everyone stood before their new fate, realizing that Layla had made a sacrifice, and now they must complete what she started, no matter the cost. As they prepared to leave, the well spoke again, offering one final gift. Because you are kind-hearted, I offer you this. If you succeed in this endeavor and regain your father's kingdom, O princes, and restore the palace, O girls, bring the old witch and the cunning magician to me. For they are the ones who took from me the beautiful girl, my only loss. With renewed determination they set off toward the girl's palace, walking day and night without rest. Finally, they reached the hut of the evil witch who had helped their father's wife. Here they planned to trap the witch and steal the water. Hind and Prince Rad quietly sneaked into the witch's room, but unfortunately the old witch discovered them before they could complete their plan. With a swift gesture, the witch cast a spell, turning Hind into a solid rock column and the prince into a wooden one. Hasna managed to flee, and the 2 princes followed her, now more determined than ever to save their companions. They hurried to the riverbank, found a small boat, and sailed toward the Island of Wonders, hoping to find the elusive scarlet flower. The journey was grueling. They battled through raging seas and the scorching sun, but after 3 nights they reached the island. It was more beautiful than they had ever imagined. Huge, lush trees, brightly colored plants, and peaceful animals. There seemed to be no predators on the island, and the golden sunlight made everything shimmer. They marveled at the beauty of nature as they searched the island. After a day of searching, they discovered a stunning field of flowers. Rushing forward, they found the crimson flower, more beautiful than anything they had ever seen. The 2 princes eagerly approached the flower, one picking it, while the other filled their water skin with 3 drops of nectar. But in their excitement, they forgot the well's warning about the flower's scent. As they lingered near the flower, a calm breeze picked up, and the intoxicating fragrance of the flower filled the air. Within seconds, they both fell into a deep, unshakable sleep. Hasna, left alone and terrified, realized the heavy burden now fell on her. She cried in frustration, but soon her determination took over. She knew she had to finish what they had started. With a deep breath, Hasna took the water skin, filled it with fruits from the island, and began her journey back. During the 3 days it took her to return, she noticed something strange. She felt neither hunger, thirst, nor fatigue. Instead, she was filled with a strange energy and an intense warmth, as though the island had given her an unexpected strength. She knew that she had to carry on for her friends. The 3 days passed as if they were an hour. When Hasna reached the shore of the kingdom of princes, she felt an energy and determination that she had never felt before. She hid the water skin among her things and held a bright red apple in her hand. The color was still with her, and she headed to the palace of the evil magician, and when she arrived, she stood in front of the palace door and said to the guards, "Hello, guards of the great king, tell your king that I am the magician Hasna. I have come to him from far away, and I carry with me the most amazing thing he could see. Give him this amazing apple and tell him that I have something more amazing and strange than it. The guard took a fragrant from her and entered the palace and headed to the king's throne and presented him the apple and told him everything that Hasna said. The magician took the apple, and he was suffering from a disease that has no cure, neither among the wise nor among the greatest magicians. And as soon as he took one bite of the apple, he felt a tremendous energy flowing through his body. So he jumped up and got down from his chair and called out, "Bring this magician here." And now the guards brought Hasna to the king's hall. So the magician king came running to her and said in a hurry, "Where did you get this fruit? I have never felt this energy in my life. Show me to it, so I can make it a cure for me." Hasna said, "The secret is not in the fruit, my lord, but in what I add to the fruit." He said. The king was eager. "So you have the secret of my treatment?" She said, "Yes, and that is why I came to you, my lord." The magician king was happy and asked his servants to provide her with everything she needed immediately. She said, "My lord, in order for me to treat you, you must lie in your bed for 3 days. No one will enter your room. Do not open the door or the window. I will sit with you in it. I will cook fruit on a blazing fire in your room, and you will eat what I cook, morning and evening." The magician king said excitedly, "The fire is always ready and blazing in my room. Let us start the treatment now." Hasna went up with the magician to his room. He went to his bed and lay down. Hasna smiled as she looked at the blazing fire and went to the stove quietly. She took out his water skin and cast a quick glance at the magician lying on his bed, reassured. She opened the water skin and poured the water in it onto the blazing fire. The magician was startled in panic, screaming and writhing. Only a few moments later he fell motionless, unable to move his limbs, screaming and shouting, paralyzed on his bed. When the people of the kingdom learned what had happened, the country exploded in celebration. The cheers and jubilations rose in all parts of the villages and cities as everyone was freed from the grip of the usurping sorcerer and the evil witch. The story of Hasna became popular on every tongue, and her tale of her courage and intelligence inspired young and old. One night, while Hasna was standing on the balcony of the palace overlooking the ongoing celebrations, she noticed, from afar, something moving among the shadows. She squinted her eyes, and suddenly she saw a scene that made her heart leap for joy. It was her sister Hind and Prince Rad, who had been transformed into wooden columns by magic, walking towards the palace. The magic that bound them had been broken. Her heartbeat accelerated, and she ran towards the gate, tears streaming down her cheeks. As they approached, she threw herself into Hind's arms, while Prince Rad stood smiling with great gratitude. Everyone exchanged hugs and congratulations, thanking Hasna for her courage and wisdom, without which they would have remained prisoners of darkness. Prince Fajr said as he looked at her with eyes glowing with admiration, "You were the source of strength and hope for all of us. Your courage changed our destiny." Then he added firmly, "But now it is time to complete what we started. I will lead the soldiers myself to fulfill our promise to the well and present to her the magicians who are being held by Al-Sajjad. We will recover Layla and restore the glory of justice." Prince Fajr and his guards prepared themselves and set off on a long journey across the plains and mountains towards the well. They did not stop except at the mouth of the magic well. Prince Fajr advanced with steady steps and signaled to the soldiers to throw the magicians into the depths. The evil witch began to scream, pleading with false promises that she would change and become good, but her words were lost in the echo of the dark well. The moment they fell, silence fell over the place, then luminous water rose from the depths of the well, as if it were a reflection of the stars. Suddenly, a golden ray appeared from among the water, shining like the sun. Then Lila's face appeared with its gentle smile. She climbed slowly until her feet touched the ground. Prince Lyle advanced and lifted her in his arms tenderly and said, "You were the beacon of hope that lit my path in the darkest of times. Without you, we would have achieved nothing. I owe you my life." Layla's face turned red, and she couldn't help but smile shyly as their eyes met for the first time, with deep feelings that are difficult to describe. Then Prince Lil turned towards the well and asked, "What about my brothers?" They inhaled the scent of the scarlet flower and sank into an endless sleep. The well replied with its deep voice, "Your kind hearts and noble goals deserve a reward. Take some of my holy water and pour it on them, and they will rise from their slumber." Prince Lil walked very carefully towards the scarlet flowers, avoiding their strong scent, until he reached his sleeping brothers. He poured water on their faces, and immediately they opened their eyes, as if they had returned from another world. The entire family rejoiced, and everyone returned together to the kingdom. In the palace, grand celebrations were held where Prince Fajr married Hasna, Prince Raad married Hind, and Prince Lil married Layla. Prince Fajr was crowned king of the kingdom, and Hasna was king beside him, while their father recovered after the evil wife's magic was removed. The girls returned to visit their father in his palace, where everyone lived happily and peacefully. The kingdom became more prosperous under their rule, and the name Hasna became a symbol of courage and wisdom in all parts. See you in a new video. May God keep you safe.